Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Do you know what the word Holocaust means? Okay, I will show you. We have to start with this before we go any further. Holocaust. Destruction or slaughter on a mass scale, especially caused by fire or nuclear war. A nuclear holocaust. Or, number two, a Jewish sacrificial offering that was burned completely on an altar. So you see, first is a mass scale destruction caused by a fire or nuclear war. Or we get to the religion hanky-panky right there. Why did I start with this? Well, we have to set the premises and the definitions in order to discuss certain issues. So we agree, because I know when people will agree with this definition, with number one, and will read this article right here, obviously that would have, according to Sky News, and not only, will have a certain kind of meaning. So this is Sky News from Saturday, June 14th. Tehran will burn. Tehran is the capital of a country where a mass of people, right? Mass scale, are leaving. So Tehran will burn if it keeps firing missiles, Israel warns, as Iran issued threat to UK friends and US. So what's going on here? So Tehran will burn. How can Tehran burn? Remember, Tehran is a city. So Israel, put this in the context of Ukraine and Russia. When the Russians strike Kiev, what do they call that? Oh, you know how they call it in that instance. Putin never said, or the defense minister of the Russian Federation, that Kiev will burn. There were some people who said, like Medvedev, it is true, but he was not the defense secretary or the defense minister. In this case, Mr. Shoigu, or whatever it's over there. So what do we have here? We have a threat, clear threat, directed to a city full of civilians and some political figures and military targets probably, that will burn. How can it burn? Well, it has to be what's the definition? It has to be a mass scale. Do you think that Tehran, who has some million people living over there, it's considered a mass scale attack and slaughter and destruction caused by burning or nuclear war? Let's go to the nuclear war. Israel never confirmed or denied, even though there are some officials confirmed they have nuclear weapons. I personally think they have it. Now, is that a direct connection between one or two? I mean, that would make it easier for the Israelis to do it. Now, if you have the moral restraint to think that's too far, I urge you to drop that in this case. And why do I say that? Please look at Gaza. Gaza is flattened. People, no food, it was a blockade, no food, no water, remember? And the defense minister of Israel, Mr. Gallant, I think it was, who has a arrest warrant issued by the ICC court, right, from The Hague, to arrest him for alleged criminal war crimes. He said that these guys are human, what exactly? You remember what he said, right? He said they are human animals or something. So if you think of those people in those terms, I have to remind you that that bad dude called Adolf, remember in the 1930s and 20s and early 40s, he used to call the Slavic people, Slavs, as okay? So, and you remember what kind of crimes Adolf committed, correct? Correct. So I have no doubt, zero, me personally as a human being, free human being, no doubt whatsoever that Israel would use or will use those weapons after this threat. It makes it easier. Or it's going to use, it doesn't really matter if it's a nuclear attack. All right, that's the first article. I'm going to go to the second article. This comes from another one. Israel warns Tehran will burn if Iran continues firing missiles. So, Israel says, basically, if you strike back, my initial strike, then you will have a, I think this is the answer. So that is, I come to you, I commit something to you, I give you some unwanted loving. Let's use euphemism. You know what that is? Unwanted loving? All right, that means a rape. And someone commits that, and when the person retaliates, or before he retaliates, I warn that person that you see this pocket knife right here, or this pocket knife, I will destroy you. If you dare to scratch my face, kick me in the balls, poke my nose, or whatever. So this is what it is. I am allowed to do this to you, and if you retaliate to this, I'm gonna... What's that? If you want to play baboon with terms, this is Tehran, again, is a city. They don't say the political class or the A, B, C person. Iran's defense minister warns Tehran will burn if Iran continues firing missiles. So this is Associated Press. All right, so I think we established this garbage, and I think they will have no problem doing that. Now, we're going to discuss what will happen when they do that. I tell you what happens. There will be condemnation from some countries. We're going to warn, but nothing else. There will be no sanctions, nothing. Why? Because they will put together a narrative that was somehow justified and necessary because they are in self-defense. And your school books that your children will read will give that justification attached to this little incident that will be minimized or maximized depending on what kind of narrative. The maximization is like, we escaped another oh, thank God. Then we're going to have another Passover celebration for another people. Read their books. Okay, so this is the first one. So you're going to learn something justified. Like, for instance, America's or USA's drop of 2 atomic bombs. The only country in the world. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, 6th and 9th of August 1945. Remember that one? And they said, the Americans, Hiroshima first if you don't surrender unconditionally. You don't? Next one, Nagasaki, boom. You don't? Next one is going to be Yokohama. So they would go, the Americans, the good Americans, would go to each city, civilian infrastructure, civilians. So when you hear these guys condemning Russia for hitting civilian targets, for good reason. I mean, civilian targets are not to be hit. Then use the same rule to these guys. So, next one would have been Yokohama, maybe Sapporo, next, whomever. That is, again, it sounds to me like Holocaust, doesn't it? It can't shadow the Holocaust. That's why it's not called that way. But when you read in your history books, or is referred in America about those atomic bombs, there's never attached to it war crimes, Holocaust. Nothing. No. Because that's a Holocaust by burning. So it's never attached. Even when the American delegation shows up at the commemoration of the Hiroshima, remember they always show up, the Japanese never attached it with that. They never mention it. But it fits the definition. But again, it's going to be the same way when these guys decide to do it. And everybody in the West will say, everybody, you know who, will say it was justified. No, it's never justified. So that's the first topic. Let's see what the Iranians get ready to do to the Israelis now. The thing that they're not supposed to. So if Iran is going to do this, what I'm going to mention now, Israel will do that. And I think it's very clear. But hey, let's move on. Russia Today. So we have here. All right, the first one. The Israeli military, this is according to the 14th of June, today, said on Saturday that around 25% of Iranian missiles, fewer than 50, were not intercepted, according to the protocol. They didn't damage any critical infrastructure, according to these guys. So, first they said the Iranians launched less than 100 missiles. Then the Iranians said, no, we launched more, a few hundreds. Now this guy says 25%, maybe hit the targets. I suspect that's much more than that. You're not going to say the exact amount. That it's a war protocol, okay? So 25, let's say you have 300 missiles. I'm not going to give 200 because I said hundreds. That was reported, hundreds of missiles. So hundreds, I don't want to go to 200. 200 is the first, figure after 100, the singular. 100 is 100, below, underneath, whatever. You said hundreds, that means it's at least 2. So let's say 3. I'm not going to say 6 or 9 or 1,000 hundreds. Okay? So I'm nice. I'm going to say 300 missiles. So if you have 300 missiles and you have 20% of each 100, 25 missiles plus 25 missiles plus 25 missiles, out of 300 is 75 missiles hit the targets. That's the minimum reported by the Israelis. So 75 missiles. The Iron Dome works. Buy one, get one free. Okay, sorry for the civilians, but nevertheless, let's move on. That's the first one. Let's see what's next. Do you know how many people died over there? How many civilians died? Right here. Around 60 people, including 20 children, have been killed in Israeli strike on housing complex in Tehran. Now, I saw pictures, so there's not debatable. It's debatable the number, that's all. But definitely, I saw the complex. So it says, Israeli airstrike Friday killed 78 people and wounded more than 320, including senior military officials and civilians. So, do you hear this in Associated Press? Not really. And now let's see what the Iranians will do. Right here. This is what we need to do. This is 7:42 GMT. Iran is preparing to launch around 2,000 rockets at Israel in upcoming strikes. According to the outlet, the Iranian military has warned that future missile strikes will be 20 times larger than the previous ones. So 20 times larger, that means the other one is what? 100. Isn't that about whatever it is, my friends? Here is the reality. These guys are ready to do it again. These guys tell you this, and I have this conclusion. Rest my case for this subject. They will not even blink launching a nuclear war. That's my assessment as a free human being. Maybe my assessment or my opinions are wrong, but as a free human being, I should be allowed to express them without being arrested or, hanged or burned on a stake or on a sacrificial offering. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Iran will strike, will continue to strike. Stay strong. Stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.